Good evening and welcome to another episode of We Are Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I will be your host for the show because I'm not putting a time thing on it because people keep telling me it's not evening time when they listen, so I'm not going to bother doing that anymore. But thank you for joining me and listening and joining us, because joining me is I can't see him. He's across the other side of the world, but I can guarantee that he has a semi-permanent smile on his face at the moment just now, because I'm joined by Richard Keene. And Richard Keene is from Ninth Haven Games. And Richard Keene, when Jeff Goldblum asked him the question, we don't know if we could, we should have maybe asked the question if we should, he went ahead and he did it. So he's currently running Dinogenics on Kickstarter. So and he's definitely the little engine that could, because it's the newly freshly funded Dinogenics, isn't it, Richard?
That's correct.
But first of all, thanks for coming on the show, because I understand that you've probably become a little bit busy over the last 24 hours.
That's an understatement. Thank you for having me.
It's good. We'll talk a little bit maybe about the previous campaign, because this is your second time to Kickstarter. But how are you feeling at the moment? What's the mood in camp? Are you smiling while you're talking to me just now?
A little bit of smiling. I woke up this morning. I did not know I had funded when I first woke up. I noticed that my cell phone was blinking, and about a dozen people were telling me I should be very excited. And that was my morning.
What was it like? Was it kind of like the best breakfast you'd ever had? Was it like the best shower that you'd ever had? Was nothing gonna faze you this morning?
Well, first of all, I didn't do any of that because I had to immediately check my computer and see if people were just messing with me, which they were not. So it was a good morning. It was a good morning.
That's good. We should cover off the admin and just let people know a couple of things. So first of all, as I say, the reason that we do this is because I'm trying to speak to as many designers in the board game industry as possible. So it allows me to name drop as many designers as possible in future episodes as we go on. The second reason that we're doing this is because myself and Richard, we did speak, was it about a month ago, 6 weeks ago, when the first time you were running the campaign was kind of started, because we were talking about you coming on, and I think you had kind of looked at making the decision of kind of taking things away. So that was when we first spoke. But one of the things we like to do in the show is we like to actually find out a little bit of history about yourself. And we like to have a little peek back into the past. We like to have a little study of the present. And we also like to have a kind of like maybe a look into the future of DNA and dinosaurs. So, do you want to maybe start by jumping back a bit and telling the kind of the good people how you got into the board gaming hobby in the kind of the first place, Richard?
Sure thing. Well, this is my first board game I've worked on. I'll be right up front with that.
Mm-hmm.
I have been interested in game design quite literally since I was a child, though. And back then, I was more interested in video games and things to that sort. In college, I spent some time trying to do that a little bit and learned that I have very little talent when it comes to programming, so that wasn't ever going to happen. So I really started getting the board games at that point. And from there, it was a lot of playing games. Of course, this was still in college. College is a great time to pick up new games. Euro games were really just becoming a big thing over here in America, at least.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, it was basically putting ideas on paper. When I first started out working on this, it was more of a side hobby project. It was just to see if I could do anything with it. Over time, though, it kind of evolved. Like I would show some prototypes to friends and family, and the early feedback was good. So, we built on it from there. Some other of my friends got involved with helping me prototype it, and then we started taking it around to other people as well. And I guess the rest is history.
Yeah. Millions of years of history. I mean, what kind of what kind of games did you like to play? I mean, are you a kind of a Euro guy? Are you like more of a Ameritrash? What was the kind of stuff that you used to play in kind of college time?
Well, I mean, like a lot of people, Settlers of Catan was my first game, first modern game, anyways. But the honest truth is, I like pretty much all types of games. I'm not a big, casual social gamer, but Euro, Ameritrash, it's all good. And actually, when it comes to Dinogenics, I like to think I've incorporated ideas, a little bit of both genres into the game to try and make it have the mechanic foundation that Euro gamers love, with a little bit more of the theming that Ameritrash is known for.
That's such a horrible phrase, Ameritrash.
I agree. I usually don't use that phrase, but it is the common term, I guess, as it is.
It's kind of become the norm, kind of the accepted phrase for something which I guess doesn't have a lot of either lots of cubes. It has a massive scoring track round the side, and doesn't usually have an awful lot of dice. But I mean, there seems to be, as time goes on, a kind of a bigger mixture between the kind of the genres. I mean, are there any games? I mean, have you got a reasonable sized collection yourself then, in terms of games?
I do, and with the onset of Kickstarter, it's only grown far larger. Yeah. Probably larger than it should be, but I enjoy it.
Have you got? Do you have a pile of shame that hasn't been played, like everyone else? There's a sigh. I'm guessing that's a yes.
Most of my games have been played at least once, but beyond that, I'm not going to comment.
Do you have like a kind of like a local group that you go to? Do you get friends coming round on a regular basis to kind of play?
A little bit of both, actually. Some of my original game testers are also my closest friends here before we kind of branched out. But I also take part in a number of meetups local to this area.
Okay. Is there anything you've been playing recently that's kind of caught your attention?
We play a lot of things. Like introducing new things at the local gaming group is kind of a fun thing. Like just last night, we played Great Western Trail.
Oh yeah.
It's the first time I've played that. That was a great experience. I really enjoyed that one. Beyond that, though, it's like honestly, it's whatever new thing has come in for me from Kickstarter lately. So.
Really? What's the latest thing that you've had come in? You're getting grilled hard this evening, yes, Richard, because you're now a successful Kickstarter. So that means that you get grilled.
These are also the very important questions. I'm sure everybody wants to know.
No, these are the very important questions, because it's like the cardboard that maketh the man, and it's important to find out that, people don't just want to know that you came up with a game idea out of thin air. We want to know influences. We want to know your direction. We want to know whether you have the big kind of square shelving unit, so we want to know if you just keep all your games in a cupboard or under a bed. I mean, these are the important questions, Richard. These are the questions we expect you to answer. If you don't, but no, I mean, is there what's the last kind of Kickstarter game that you had? Don't think you're getting away with this. No, yeah.
Probably the most recent one, the big one that I know offhand. This was actually a couple months ago now, but the second wave of Cthulhu Wars just arrived at my house.
Ooh.
And anybody that's familiar with that game knows immediately that, one, I spent way too much money on it, and two, it takes up most of my gaming shelf. So there's that. But I do enjoy the game, even if it is really overpriced and overproduced.
What kind of game is it? Because it's just for people that are out there that are maybe going, Cthulhu Wars, is that? I have no idea what that kind of is. Is it Ameritrash? Is it Euro? Is it miniatures kind of fighting? What kind of game is it?
In this case, it's very Ameritrash. Giant 12-inch tall miniatures, if they're even considered miniatures at that point, on a huge board that won't fit on most tables. It's an area control game. Some people may be familiar with the game by Eric Lang called Chaos in the Old World. It actually plays fairly similar to that, but with the Cthulhu mythos.
I was going to say that the thing about Chaos of the Old World is, since it's kind of gone out of print with Fantasy Flight Games, it's very expensive. But then, as you've just kind of insinuated, Cthulhu Wars sounds like it. It didn't.
It's probably more so.
Did you go in kind of long and kind of did you go down to the deep extra pockets? Were you one of the big backers, or?
Not as big as some people. However, this is actually the second onslaught, as they called it. Mm-hmm. The first onslaught of Cthulhu Wars came out quite some time ago, and because it's an expensive game to produce, it didn't go to retail in any large fashion. The main game did, but all of the expansions, which, just to give listeners an idea, each expansion is about $60, so the price of a normal game. So they went back to Kickstarter, and so for Onslaught 2, I picked up all of those expansions that I didn't already own. So
okay. And are you going to any kind of groups to chat through about your Cthulhu Wars semi-addiction, or?
Not currently. Not currently.
You've not taken the plunge, but that's I don't know. I mean, it's hard to judge on Kickstarter because you get guys that'll easily shell out $500, $600, $700 and think nothing of it, and then there's other folk that'll go $15 for a card game. You must be daft, kind of thing. So it's kind of each to their own. I know that some people get really, really passionate, and if the other way to look at it, if that's the only thing that you're spending your money on, then if you like it, why not? It's not going to make any difference to anyone else. Have you managed to get it to the table yet? That's the important thing.
Actually, quite a bit, actually.
Oh, that's cool.
It's pretty popular with some of my friends, at least. Mm-hmm. Others dread the sight of it, I think, but it's Cthulhu Wars. That's expected. Is
that kind of your bag? Or, I mean, with you going down the kind of the design path, and you being aware, I'll learn to talk, and you being aware that you were going to be putting out your own product out there. Have you tried to expand the kind of the different genres that you played? I mean, have you found yourself kind of open-minded, or trying to experience different types of games yourself?
Very much so, actually. That's one of the reasons why I do enjoy going to the game groups, because it exposes me to some games I may not otherwise gain an interest in myself. Mm-hmm. And I very much believe that even if I don't particularly like a game, there's still a lot I can learn from it. So in that way, I try to try everything at least once.
All right, okay. Is there any genres that you've kind of went, actually, I'm right, I really don't like this one. This is awful, and you really want to stay away from?
I don't know if I can say a genre, but when it comes to games like Munchkin, for example, I absolutely loathe that game. So if that's your go-to game, you may not like anything I produce, but that's perfectly okay.
Well, it's okay. I mean, you can't like everything. But I've heard. I don't know. Munchkin's really, really popular. I personally can put my hand up and say I've never played a game of Munchkin. The people that I know that speak about Munchkin say they don't like it at all, but it still seems to sell lots and lots and lots and lots and lots. So there must be some kind of attraction to it. I have no idea what, but I'm tempted to get hold of a copy and just see kind of what all the fuss is about, unless you, of course, tell me otherwise, that I shouldn't bother and just borrow a friend's copy instead.
It's a game made for people who enjoy pain and inflicting pain on others, and you should avoid it.
I'll take that. I'll take your word for that then. From somebody who plays and obviously doesn't like inflicting pain on others, what you mentioned obviously that has Dinogenics been something that's been sitting in the back of your mind for a while, or are you one of these kind of designers that has had several ideas bubbling away, and this is just one of them that's kind of coming to fruition?
It's a little bit of both. As I've actually listed on my Kickstarter page, this has been in development for about 3 years now, which is almost unfathomable at this point that it's been that long. In that time, there's been other games that have popped in my head that I would like to, work on eventually, but this has been at the forefront of my mind for quite a while.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Where did you first get the idea from? I mean, where did you sit there and go, oh, this is it, guys, girls, we're going to make a dinosaur park game?
Honestly, one of the inspirations probably isn't going to come as a surprise to a lot of people, because it's been mentioned on many forums and Facebook posts, but Caverna was really one of the games that kind of set me down this path. I love Caverna. A lot of people do, obviously. But one thing about Caverna that I've never been such a fan of, and I guess this is going back to Euro games and whatnot, is that many of them are very solitaire-type experiences, where it's a group of people more or less playing a game by themselves.
Yeah.
And there might be a little bit of player interaction, but on the whole, you don't influence what other people do.
No.
So for Dinogenics, I thought that this would be a perfect opportunity to take some of the ideas of this game, which I love. I love games that allow you to actually build something, make it your own, which is perfect for building a dinosaur park, because everybody wants to have something unique to them. And then I kind of took this idea of making the corporations that people are playing somewhat corrupt, just as a thematic choice. But that also gives an opportunity, because at that point, there's a valid reason for these competing corporations that obviously want all the money to mess with each other a little bit. And there's very little direct attack in the game, but there is many ways that you can either benefit from what other people do or prevent them from doing something.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really interesting concept. It takes, the elements of the Euro game foundation and just makes them a little bit more interesting.
No, I mean, you do see it time and time again, where there's almost like at the beginning of a round there's a little bit of interaction, and then at the end when you're doing scoring there potentially is again. I mean, Power Grid's one of these games that you get an interaction in terms of the auctioning for the power stations at the beginning, but there's not really that much interaction as well. I found Terraforming Mars to be, it didn't seem to matter if there was 2 people playing it or maybe 3 or 4 people playing it. There didn't again seem to be kind of a lot of interaction between the players. There was an overall effect that would have an effect on everybody, but there wasn't any kind of toing and froing between a lot of people, unless you were actively trying to mess people kind of over. When you were starting on Dinogenics, were you playing around? Were you saying, right, I'm gonna I'm going to take this all the way. This is something that's kind of definitely going out there. When did it move from being a kind of a let me see if I can design a board game to let me see if I can actually make this a commercial type of product? What was the process with that?
So one of the tools that really helped me get going early on is actually a computer program. It's called Tabletop Simulator.
Yeah.
It costs $20, somewhere around there. And the reason this was great is it creates a 3D environment that you can play board games with people.
Mm-hmm.
But more importantly than that, it makes prototyping anything a breeze. You can literally import any amount of artwork into the engine, and you can be playing it with a group of people within a number of hours. So that's kind of where we got our start going with this. And it allowed some very rapid prototyping early on. From there, it was basically taking that idea, seeing how they work in a digital environment, and trying to transpose that over to a physical environment. Mm-hmm. And an early lesson was basically discovering that some things that do work really well in a digital environment don't work at all when you're doing them in person.
Yeah.
So there was a bit of back and forth there, but it was a way to get the early prototyping stage down. And once we had something that people were actually enjoying playing in that format, I was able to take it away from there and try and get people to play it in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, it was just a side hobby that I was playing around with. However, I don't remember what the designer was, but they mentioned the steps of getting like a physical prototype produced with some degree of professional quality to it.
Yeah.
And so we went from, scribbles on a page to a fairly developed prototype at that point. And that was kind of the moment when people actually saw our original artwork in place, mm-hmm. and were telling us how, this actually feels like running a dinosaur park. That's the moment when I realized that I might have something here. This is something that I could do.
Mm-hmm. Because you're when you're not the board game designing, your world is it digital design? I think you've mentioned before. As a day job, that's what you're kind of involved in. You're involved in the kind of the digital field yourself.
I am a web designer / graphic designer / animator by trade. A little bit of everything in there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So did that make the whole journey into Tabletopia? You were just like, well, this is easy. I can just throw this here and throw that there. Because I know of others that have struggled a bit putting stuff on Tabletopia unless they've got a kind of a bit of a graphical design kind of background to them. I know it's kind of easy once you know how. But did you find it? It sounds to me like you found it just like a bit of a breeze to just get the stuff kind of organised and have a digital prototype as opposed to maybe a physical one instead.
Exactly. Early on, it was just a great experience. Basically, as long as you know how to use Photoshop, you can put a prototype together, and that was enough for me.
Does that mean is there already a couple of saved files that you're developing? Okay, look at it this way. Are you going to be continuing this? Is Tabletopia more likely to be kind of like a helpful design tool to you? You're not necessarily going to be the guy that's going to be sitting there with marker pens and white pieces of paper prototyping the next game.
Very much so. Where I live in Vermont, which is one of the smaller populated states in the United States. So there actually isn't that big a population here. Like, I live in the biggest city in my state, but compared to most states, this is a small town.
All right.
So the fact that I can create a digital prototype and get it to people all over the country is a huge advantage.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Did that help during the kind of were you using Tabletopia more as a kind of like a feedback tool? Were you able to send people kind of like the game to play through and get their feedback from that, rather than have to, I guess, shell out capital to get a lot of kind of physical copies?
Early on, very much so.
Ah,
As things have gone forward, we have switched over to more physical prototypes that we actually send to people.
yeah.
Just the tangibility of it is important for testing.
Mm.
But early on, it was a great tool because if somebody sent us back feedback, then I can edit a single file in a computer program and publish it, and then the updated version is ready to go.
That's cool. And you're in the, I think you end up having to, because the kind of like reviewers and previewers and guys like that, they still like to get their hands on a bit of physical cardboard. I think is the way that it goes.
Very much so, which has actually been one of the hurdles for us, because as I've mentioned, this is a new thing for me. We don't have a lot of money to invest in this project, so it's basically come out of my personal pocket every new thing that has to come up. So creating the physical prototypes, getting them out to previewers, reviewers, and getting them to actually take a look at it has taken some effort.
It sounds like a bit of a... I mean, we'll talk obviously about the gameplay. Let's talk about the kind of the touch on the previous campaign. Obviously, I'm not going to go on about it because I don't want to upset you. But it's not. Let's make you cry. No, you ran the campaign before, and there were, you decided, right, okay, this isn't going where I want it to go. From what would you say are the main things that you've maybe done differently on this campaign compared to what you did kind of previously so far? What were the things that, looking back now, you went, well, yeah, you were right. That should have been done slightly differently or better, or is there anything like that?
I mean, a lot of it comes down to the first-time developer. It comes down to money, ultimately. We set our funding goal quite high. The reason was we did not have a lot to invest in our initial art budget. So we were hoping that we would hit our initial funding goal, and I wouldn't have to go into debt to make the art for the game, which is always a problem. But the other big issue was shipping cost. I really believe that was probably the biggest hurdle in our campaign. Part of it was that our game is actually pretty heavy, physically heavy. There's a lot of wood bits inside, all the dinosaur meeples, a number of cubes, a ton of cards, and all of that has a big weight footprint as far as shipping it around the world. And so when we got the shipping estimate from our distributor, it really was at the time as low as it could go.
Yeah.
However, for a large portion of the world, pretty much everybody out of the United States, it was prohibitively high. So one of the things we did is we kind of went back to the drawing board on a few of the components. We reduced the size of some things, reduced the thickness of some cardstock, took out some of the blocks that almost never got used in the game because you very rarely hit the cap on things.
Yeah.
And we pulled them back slightly, not a whole great deal, but it actually made a big difference, everything taken together. We shaved off almost a pound from our original shipping weight, which, I mean, you can take a look on Kickstarter right now and compare the shipping costs. They are drastically different. And I think that's made a huge improvement to a lot of backers.
I think, yeah. I mean, you're looking at the shipping costs. I mean, it's $12 for the US, but for the EU, it's only 15.
Yep.
And knowing, having, personal experience of how much a shipping cost can be, $15 is nothing really in terms of getting something shipped from the US to, well, getting shipped to to Europe, on a Kickstarter campaign, it's kind of the expected kind of price that'll, that looks perfectly reasonable to myself. We'll have to. The other thing that there was, and I never understood this, so I might rant. I'm gonna, but you probably won't, because you sound like a decent, well-adjusted human being who will not get angry. But the whole dinosaur. Let's talk about the dinosaur island in the room as well, because I think it's the only time I think I stepped away from a discussion on a Facebook group, because I remember seeing the first time the campaign, and everybody. You would think that if somebody makes a game in a genre, that nobody else is ever allowed to make a game in a genre again.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a post on Facebook to say, well, here's Dinosaur Island, and then it's like, here's Dinogenics, and there was like Dinosaur Island, and then let's talk about Dinosaur Island, and it looks like Dinosaur Island, and blah blah blah, Dinosaur Island, and it was just because it was about dinosaurs. That was the only thing I could see about it. I mean, and then people were like, well, I'm not going to back it because it's similar to another game. And it's like, well, says the guy that's just backed kind of like Zombicide and then is going for the Walking Dead kind of game. Was that frustrating for you as well at the time?
So this is one that we were actually prepping to go to Kickstarter towards the end of last year. We were finalizing things around the end of November, early December, and on the advice of pretty much everyone we spoke with, said don't launch in December, because that's the death of your Kickstarter if you do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had planned to postpone it a couple months, launch in February roughly. A little while after that, there was a couple delays in there too, so this isn't the only reason. But I actually got up one morning and looked on Kickstarter, and there was a dinosaur game. So I clicked on it, took a good look at it, realized that on the surface it looked exactly like the game I was trying to make.
Yeah.
Suddenly got very depressed, and spent a good half hour reading through their rule book to see how close the games actually were.
Yeah.
And as it turns out, the two games are vastly different. They obviously share the same theme, but mechanically they are very different. But at the same time, I'm not a complete idiot, and I knew that launching my Kickstarter at the same time as theirs would probably not be a very smart thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I postponed it until the launch of the original Kickstarter, which I believe was in August. I hope I'm not getting that wrong at this point.
I know, it's up to me to get the research wrong, not you, Richard.
Yes, exactly. But there was a lot of blowback from people that either had backed that game or had just been kind of following along. And I don't necessarily hold that against anyone, but just the fact that a lot of people were judging the game without knowing anything about it, just on the theme and aesthetic alone. So there were a couple people that were trying to champion the differences, but they were getting shouted over by a lot of the other commenters.
Yeah.
And it was dragging things down. And whenever possible, I tried to join the conversations and go through some of the things that made the games different. But when you're kind of like trying to uphold one side of a conversation when the other side has 100 times as many people. So it was a detriment to the campaign, for sure.
But then it's strange because it appears like timing does appear to be everything, because you've mentioned, obviously, I mean, is there a really big difference? Can you put your hand in your heart and say there is a massive difference between the game that we launched tail end of August and the game that's we're going to be sending out to people once it's ready? I mean, is there that much of a fundamental difference between the game?
There's not. I didn't touch on this before, but one of the other things that we did after closing down our first campaign is we went back and invested a lot of our own money into improving the artwork, which if you just take a quick look at our header image on our new Kickstarter, you can see that has made a huge improvement as well. So I have no doubt that contributed a fair amount as well. And we've gone through all of our artwork. We actually have a few pieces we're waiting for right now, so we can get everything up to date. But I do think that has also helped our campaign quite considerably.
So are you in the process where not all the artwork is done, that you're going to be using the Kickstarter to fund some more of the artwork and things like that then?
To some degree. Right now we are roughly 85% done on art, but that still means there's a few things here or there that needs, the artwork finished, created. Graphic design is another one. A lot of the graphical elements of the game, like the iconography, that isn't completely finalized right now. We have had some people voice concerns about that, and we try to be upfront about that as much as possible. But a lot of that has been when we were in prototyping, we were mostly dealing with English speakers, and now that we're trying to appeal to a global environment, we're also trying to simplify the wording on things down to simple iconography that anybody can understand without needing to go through a lot of translation. So in that way, we've gone through various iterations of it. Some of it is pretty close to finalized, but again, all of this is going to see a little bit more polish before we go to print. Okay.
Are you still kind of tinkering back and forward a bit with the gameplay itself then? Have you had to be strict with yourself and say, oh, it's funded, yay, let's go and change everything, to, right, that's, that'll do.
Gameplay itself is like 98% where it's going to be.
Okay.
There have been a couple minor adjustments. Of course, now we have a lot more people interested in the game. We have a lot more people playing the game. Yeah. So there are a couple things as far as balance go that have gotten through to this point. And those things might get an adjustment. Usually it's something simple like adjusting the cost of this facility by one credit or 2 credits, something like that, or realizing that our manipulation cards, which are powerful one-time use abilities, realizing that if you combo it just perfectly with this other manipulation card, you can break a system in the game, something like that.
Yeah.
But on the whole, the mechanics are where they're going to be. There are a couple minor things we have discussed adding as stretch goals, but it's very minor as far as the overall gameplay is concerned.
Do you think there's more of a pressure nowadays to have kind of like almost like a finalized, completed game out there that people are just, expecting just to go into production? Has anyone been, there's a surprise that people, when you say, well, actually I'm not 100% of the way there, I'm 98% of the way there, and I'm kind of 85% with my art here as well. Do you think there's a big pressure for just, here's your product, this is what we're going to be doing, and it's kind of a way?
I think there's a lot of pressure for that, which is a little bit unfortunate for the Kickstarter platform in general. A lot of big developers have kind of moved in on the Kickstarter platform. Cool Mini or not just comes to mind, which usually launch on Kickstarter with products that really don't need Kickstarter, but use them more as a marketing tool than anything else. Yeah. And the unfortunate reality is if you are a small developer or first-time developer, somebody that doesn't have the ability to fund everything out of pocket, you still get compared against these giants. And in that way, you really need the highest quality production values you can just to kind of get your foot in the door.
Yeah. But you're not small fry anymore, Mr. Keene, are you, Mr. Fundy Boy? All funded and stuff.
I think I think I'm still small until the end of the campaign.
I think you're still small until you've reached $38,000. Oh, look, you've reached $38,127. I mean, you must be. I said this at the beginning, but you must kind of be going, this is amazing, but also at the same time, guys, where were you all in August? Kind of thing.
There's a little bit of that for sure. The first day of the well, this is only the second day of the campaign when I'm talking to you, but the first day, I was taking a peek at some of the backers coming in to see if they were return backers. I was actually surprised that the majority of them were new. It wasn't until later that some of my return backers started showing up, and it was like, it's interesting that these people didn't show up before. I'm a little disappointed, but I'm glad you're here now.
Yeah, no, but it's good to have, but it's good to have the kind of support. Let's talk gameplay,
Sure.
Mr. Keene, because I was going to say I'm keen to hear about the gameplay, but you're keen. I'm Richard Keene, you're Richard Keene as well. Tell us about. I am staring at the Kickstarter. My hand is hovering gently over the Pledge Now button. What's it all about? How do I play it? How do I play the game? What's it? What can I expect when I open up the lovely, freshly produced game?
So one of the conventions that I wanted to embrace a lot with this game is that it's a little bit of a sandbox type experience. We really want people to be able to build the park they want, and to that end, the main mechanics of the game involve in normal worker placement fashion. You send your workers to the mainland where there are various dig sites. You collect DNA. And you take it home. There's a little bit of a set collection mechanic here where the DNA you get from the dig sites is actually randomized. It's a deck of cards. And you need a complete matching set of the specific dinosaur DNA to create the dinosaurs. To mitigate the randomness, however, there are a number of mechanics in the game that kind of get around this. And this is a little bit where the player interaction that I spoke of before comes into play.
Yeah.
Because the DNA market, which takes place at the city center, plays a large role in this. So on a player's turn, they can send one of their workers to the city center. From there are a ton of things you can do, like build fences, buy facilities, things like that. But you can also interact with the DNA market. So in this case, let's say you went and dug up some T-Rex DNA, but you don't want a T-Rex because they're scary and might eat your visitors. So instead, you sell it to the DNA market.
Yeah.
So when you do that, one, you get a bunch of money that you can use to spend on other things in the city center. But where the player interaction comes in here is that other players then get access to that DNA. They can buy it on their turns. And the DNA market track kind of moves forward. The more DNA there pushes the items down the track, reduces their cost, makes it more appealing. Brontosaur DNA is rather expensive, but if you get it to the end of the track, then it's 2 credits less. So that's great.
That's pretty cool.
Other things are the manipulation cards, which I think I've mentioned a couple times now. So these are a little bit like I mentioned that the competing corporations are a little bit shady in their dealings. So the manipulation cards basically allow you to take usually illegal activities, and you play them, and they give you special abilities, which could be anything from buying DNA from the black market, which drastically reduces its cost, or you can go into a research pact with the other players. When you do that, you get to draw a number of cards equal to the number of players, and you actually get to distribute them among the players. You can actually also keep them all for yourself if you're greedy, but since it's a research pact, you'll gain a number of scandals for doing so, which is negative points at the end of the game. But
Okay.
all of these things kind of come together to get you the DNA. So what do you do with it? You build your park. This is a very physical game when it comes to the park building and the dinosaur mechanics. Dinosaurs must be contained within a fence pen on your park board.
I love that.
And
I just love the fact that you've got big, huge things of wood surrounding like dinosaur meatball wood things, which are really cool. Is there not a frog DNA though, Richard?
there is not a frog DNA. However, we actually explain in kind of our backstory for the game that all of the dinosaurs in Dinogenics are actually mutants. It's just varying degrees of mutants. So they're not exactly the true to life dinosaurs. We actually explain that the reason for that is the original Dinogenics facility tried making true-to-life dinosaurs, but because they had feathers, people that grew up with the old type of dinosaurs didn't actually like them, so they asked the facility to manipulate them to be more appealing to audiences.
That's a bit scientifically cool, isn't it? Because it's probably, what I mean? Yeah, what's that? It's a big chicken. It's the Tyrannosaurus chicken. It's coming to get you. But that's right, no, that's fair enough. Do you know what I mean? You didn't want a big, huge ostrich coming after you, so we've given you something more terrible instead. But it's good to hear that the frog DNA... Is the frog DNA going to be a stretch goal then?
I'm not sure. I'm not committing to anything right now.
Are you doing potentially a frog meeple that you would bring in as extra bonus DNA? No.
Maybe it could be like a first player marker.
You have to do that. I'm not going to hold it to you, but I am just going to say that we do have this on tape, and I do have it dated, and I am also going to just put a comment on the Kickstarter campaign just now.
Thanks.
Richard, no, give me a sec, I'm just going to do this. Richard said that the first... I'm going to do that. No, I'm going to do this after the show because this is rude. I can't be doing stuff and kind of letting... Said that the first way... I can't spell. I can't spell and talk at the same time. I can't multitask.
It's probably for the best.
It is probably for the best. So, you get your park. You've gone for the dinosaurs. You've gone for green ones. Can we cover that off quickly? People have, some people said, well, why have you gone for green dinosaurs? And the other one I've seen is, why haven't you gone for dinosaur minis? And the dinosaur mini question is easy. Mate, if you're so set up about getting dinosaur minis, get yourself down to a kid's toy store and you can pick them up for like 50 cents or $1 each, okay? If you really need your dinosaur minis. Unless you're going to tell me they're a stretch goal and I should keep my mouth shut. But was the dinosaur meeples like a kind of a conscious decision just to keep everything kind of nice and clean and green, yeah?
It was. I'll admit that early on I did look into what it would take to produce like more developed dinosaur miniatures. Mm-hmm. And ultimately the cost associated with them and the results of actually what they would look like, they just don't measure up at our scale of production to the wooden dinosaur meeples, which I actually really like in this case. You can probably see the number of photos I've taken. I have the wooden dinosaur meeples in my house right now, and they're wonderful. So,
what was it like, kind of getting them made and then opening up the little envelope and having them sitting there? Were you just like that? This isn't me just buying a game. This is my game. And these are my components. Isn't this just the best?
It really was. We got those from our manufacturer, Panda Games. And when I opened the container up, first of all, they sent me more copies than I thought they would. I thought I was only going to get 1 copy, and I got 3, so that was a great thing to discover. But yeah, just putting them on the board for the first time. Of course, during prototyping, we'd been using little wooden discs with pictures of dinosaurs glued onto them, which it works mechanically, but having the physical component there in your hands, it really is an awesome experience.
Did you get the little dinosaurs and pretend to be actual dinosaurs and make noises and stuff?
I can't say I did that one.
You did, so totally did. You can imagine going, I'm going to eat you. I would have done that.
No, I did not. But
you so did. Don't. That's you telling me that you had an entire set of your own wooden dinosaurs in front of you on your prototype board, and you didn't go about going, I'm the Tyrannosaurus Rex, I'm going to eat everybody. No?
No, but I did make a little diorama of a bunch of raptors breaking out of their pens. So I did do that one.
Did you take a photo?
I did, but I can't show it yet because it actually has a stretch goal I haven't announced yet in it. So
they just, you know what I mean? The Mr. Keene giveth and Mr. Keene taketh away. But, no, but in the case, yeah, as you said in the minis question, I mean, tooling is a big amount of money, and design is a big amount of money, and also, I'm not being strange here, but dinosaurs, people have a very, very set view of dinosaurs and what colours and stuff like, and shapes or colours and should be, and sometimes having something which is almost just like a recognisable icon is better than actually going for the real thing, because let's face it, people think T-Rex, you are going to think Jurassic Park. Do you know what I mean? I think Land Before Time, but that's just me. But you know, they're going to have a set view of what these different kind of, you know, dinosaurs look like to people. So I like the idea that they're representations, they're nice representations of the pieces. I guess if people want to go ahead and paint them, there isn't nothing to do them. Are you doing dinosaur stickers for the side of the meeples, Richard?
We had considered that early on, but we asked, you know, during our first campaign, we did ask people if they were interested in something like that, and most people actually said they weren't. I wonder, since we have a much larger audience now, I don't know if that would still hold true. Personally, I do kind of like the simplicity of it. One thing that we did get a lot of feedback early on, though, was the particular shade of green the dinosaur meeples are. And that is something that we are considering, varying the colors a little bit just to make them easier to spot on the board and so that you can tell one species from another. But we don't have, we haven't decided completely on what those colors will be, or even if we will go that route.
Okay, that's cool. But I guess this takes you into the interesting territory of kind of stretch goals, which we'll go into. But going back to the gameplay, because we kind of
sidestepped that a little bit.
Well, this is welcome to We're Not Wizards. You are in Tangent City, population moi. Once you got your dinosaurs, I take it then you've got to make sure that the paddocks themselves are maintained and stuff like that.
Exactly. One of the main balancing mechanics of the game is the reputation track. So when you build a new dinosaur, you immediately move your reputation forward on the track. And this is a fairly simple slider. Everybody has a little reputation cube. And the idea of this is if you have more impressive dinosaurs in your park, probably more people are going to want to come visit the park that has 3 T-Rexes and a bunch of raptors in a park that has a single very sad Triceratops. So it makes sense thematically, but it's also a bit of balancing because the Triceratops and all of the herbivores themselves are fairly self-sufficient. They do not have a requirement to keep them going, whereas all of the carnivores, which are worth a lot more points and reputation, they actually have a meat requirement every season. So that means that you actually have to collect a separate resource to keep them happy. And one area where Dinogenics kind of differs from other games in this genre is that the animals, the dinosaurs, will actually become angry if they're not well kept.
Oh.
And when it comes to something like a T-Rex, that means, and this is one of the few random elements in the game, is we do have dice. They're rampage dice.
Oh.
If you neglect to feed your T-Rex for a season, you have to roll the rampage dice. And the randomness is actually fairly light. Most of the sides of the dice are bad. You do not want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
But when you do it, depending on the result, one of two main things are going to happen. Either the dinosaur is just going to break a fence and start wandering around your park, which is an inconvenience, but isn't going to be that big a deal as long as you get them under wraps before the next season. Or you're going to roll a critical failure, which basically means that not only did it break a fence, but it also ate the visitor sitting on the other side of the fence. And when that happens, one, you gain a scandal token, but two, the visitor is immediately removed from your park, which means you do not get the score for the round, which means you're missing out on victory points in the form of visitors. The other thing is dinosaurs can also inadvertently free other dinosaurs. So if you have a particular bad example where, say, a T-Rex was not fed and the raptor sitting next to it was not fed, they might both break out and also free the Triceratops and the Stegosaurus in your park. At which point, your building structures can all get destroyed, and it's generally a bad time for your visitors. The other people at the table enjoy it, though.
It's like there is nothing tastier than scared dinosaur tourists. Just saying, just throwing that comment kind of out there. Is it playable? Is it a certain number of rounds that you play, or is it up to a certain score that the winner's decided? Because you mentioned scandal tokens, so I guess you get to a point and then that's it, everybody stops and you count up how well you've kind of done?
Yes, there is a preset number of seasons. It's 6 main seasons plus a preseason. The preseason basically takes place before visitors are distributed, so that first season is basically setting up your park, trying to get a dinosaur, things like that.
Okay.
And when I spoke of the reputation track, every season it actually advances forward, increasing the number of visitors that are actually interested in visiting the parks. So there's a bit of a active competition among players to try and one-up each other with reputation so that you can get more visitors, which are both victory points and money for your future seasons.
Stretch goals then, because that, it sounds fun.
Thank you.
I like the idea. I like, okay, I'm going to be honest. I'm just going to have the dinosaur things, and I'm going to be playing about with them for about three times more than before I'll kind of play the game. But at least I'll have little dinosaur meeples before I actually play the game and get around to playing it. But the concept sounds really, really interesting, and you are now in the land of potential stretch goals. So last time, obviously, it was like, is this going to fund? I don't know. You're now in the land of, well, this has funded. Now we're thinking stretch goals. How far down the kind of the stretch goal path are you? Have you actually thought, well, yeah, I do have things planned out, or is it a case of, well, I'm so far planned out, but I'm not sure where I can go kind of afterwards?
So this is something I've actually discussed quite a bit with our manufacturer. We do have a roadmap up to about $100,000 in stretch goals.
Right.
So right now, if things continue as they have, there's a very real possibility we'll get there. There is one far-reaching additional goal that at the time of our first Kickstarter, it was such a far-fledged goal that I didn't fully develop it at the time, but
Okay.
that's what I'll call the $150,000 stretch goal.
All right,
at which
okay.
point there is something very big, very exciting that I'm not going to disclose right now. But I think if we hit there, we'll have some happy backers.
If you reach the 150,000 goal, will you get one of those T-Rex outfits and shoot a video of you announcing that you've reached the $150,000 goal?
You know, one of my friends actually already volunteered to wear one of those suits at one point, so I may hold her to that if we fund.
Not talking about your friend, I'm talking about you.
We'll see. We'll see.
Is that a yes? That sound like a yes?
That's not a yes.
That would be. I just thought that'd be so cool. We've reached 100. You don't even have to like kind of appear in camera. You just have to kind of run past like a T-Rex, just going $150,000 like that, and then just go, and that'll be fine. That would be absolutely amazing. What? Going for, I mean, so this, so that'll be good. I'm looking forward to seeing you doing the video of you and the T-Rex or any other dinosaur. You could be a sad Triceratops if you wanted to. But so that's exciting for stretch goals. In terms of going forward, building the community, keeping the momentum going, do you have plans for that? Is this all of a sudden? Is this moving from something? I know, because is this moving from something that, well, I really need to be keeping an eye on this. Are you going to be looking for help with the community? Are you going to see what type of community comes up in the comments and stuff like that?
There are a number of different things. Obviously, when the first Kickstarter shut down, one of the first things I did is tried to reach out to as many different, media venues as I could to try and get some additional coverage, get more videos created, previews, things like that. Mm-hmm. And we have some of that coming. Unfortunately, a month was probably not as long as I could have used to get some of that going, but yeah. We do have some videos planned for the coming weeks. I actually hope that by the 10th, we should have access to some new footage, which I'd really like to show like a full playthrough of the game, mm-hmm. Preferably in person, and things like that. Also, obviously, trying to get the community involved a little bit. Anytime a discussion shows up, if they'll have me, I try to participate in the conversation. Sometimes that goes well. But it's kind of an ongoing thing. We also didn't really expect this to blow up in the first day, so there is a little bit of we're kind of rushing to get everything together now. I'll be upfront about that,
including the dinosaur costume. I am going to keep
going. Let that one go.
I am definitely. That's going out in every single tweet about the episode. There's going to be various pictures of various people in dinosaur costumes. I'm going to say, have you seen the Kenosaurus Rex?
Thanks.
There you go. That's your name. I'll be putting that on the comments and the Kickstarter thing as well. Oh, come on. You'll love it. I could even draw you a little picture of you as a dinosaur too.
All right, I'm going to hold you to that one.
I'll tell you what, if you send me a picture, I will draw you as the Kenosaurus Rex. And we have this. If you send me a picture this evening, I will draw you a picture as a Kenosaurus Rex and I will put it on the Twitter account. I'm swearing this in front of all 12 and a half listeners that we have. But I will definitely, everybody can point me on this. If you don't see a picture of Richard Keene as a Kenosaurus Rex depending on him giving me a photograph, by the 11th of October, you have permission to come down and track me and hunt me down like the dog I am. if people are listening just now, and there are more than 12, there's 17. If people are listening just now and they're saying, listen, this sounds quite good, I kind of wouldn't mind getting my own little dinosaur park kind of going. Dinogenics sounds like the way to go. How much is it for them to get involved? How much money is it going to cost them to jump in and pledge, Mr. Keene?
So the basic pledge, standard park manager pledge, is $54, and that'll get you a complete set of the game.
So you get the full game. You get all the unlocked stretch goals. It's actually I'm reading it and I can't even read properly. That is absolutely ridiculous. It's just, I'm not even going to bother editing that out because it just shows how stupid I'm being anyway. But $49, that'll get, $49 is an egg hatcher. That's the early backer. But the $54, that is the main deal. That'll get you right in. So it'll either be $12 shipping or $15 shipping, depending where in the world you are. But there's obviously other shipping prices depending if you're a little bit further afield. If people are interested in keeping up with you on the social side of things, on the interweb nets, where can they find you? Where will you hang out?
The best place to find us is right now on Facebook. We keep that up to date regularly. You can find us at facebook.com/Dinogenics.
Okay.
You can also find us on Twitter at Ninth Haven Games.
Yes. Where did you get the name from?
Nowhere in particular. You put me on the spot there.
I did. No, because I was meaning to ask that. No. Yeah.
It basically is just a takeoff of my standard username. I use Lord9 as a username for almost everything. So if you see that person somewhere, there's a good chance it's me. Unless they're doing something horrible or stupid, in which case it's definitely not me.
If it's a guy in a dinosaur costume doing a video.
That's not me either.
It's definitely not you either. One of the things I noticed on the campaign was that you're putting the delivery down as next year, November next year.
Yes.
Is there a reason? Is there a reason behind that? Is it you? Are you just being, guys, this is Kickstarter. Delays potentially can happen, and you'd rather kind of under-promise, over-deliver type thing. You'd rather get it into people's hands if you can as early as possible, kind of thing.
Very much so. We are a first-time developer. Mm-hmm. We're working with a great company, but at the same time, we are new to this. We are upfront about that fact, and most of us on the Dinogenics team are, frequent Kickstarter backers. We've seen numerous projects we've backed that do not fulfill on their original fulfillment date, and rather than experience that ourselves, we gave ourselves a little bit of a cushion there. Yeah. As far as our actual manufacturing and shipping estimate and when the game would actually arrive. So yeah, we're playing it safe a little bit there, and we believe in complete transparency as far as communicating with the community goes. So if anything does come up, we will be upfront about it. Or if development goes right on track and we can get the game in people's hands a couple months earlier than our estimated date, all the better.
Yeah, it'd be nice to be proven wrong over that, wouldn't it? And end up saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, we delivered in August." My bad, kind of thing.
Exactly.
Okay, I got two more questions for you. Well, first of all, listen, thank you for coming on, because this has been a lot of fun. Well, I've enjoyed myself. You're probably sitting there going, "What am I doing?" If you were a dinosaur, what dinosaur would you be?
Ankylosaurus.
Oh, really? I should draw you as an Ankylosaurus then. The club tail.
It's a big giant turtle with a battering ram as a tail.
Yeah. Okay. We'll consider that done then. We'll not do the Kenosaurus Rex. We'll do something else. Secondly, if the dinosaurs did come back to life, if they started rampaging through the state of Vermont, and if you were in a situation where you're getting chased about by a velociraptor, and your shelter is by running down to an alley, and you end up in a board game shop, and you shut the door behind you because it's an external fire escape and the velociraptor can't get in. You're in a board game shop. You're allowed to take any 3 board games you want. Now that can be anything with expansions. It can be anything is available at all. You've got a trolley. Unfortunately, the trolley only carries 3 games. What 3 games do you take with you back out into dinosaur land, Mr. Keene?
Are these ones that I'm just stealing from the shop, or are these games I'm saving?
Listen, it's carnage and chaos outside. You know, if you decide, if it helps you, you have a wallet with a stupid amount of money, which you stole off somebody else. But and you can put some money on the counter to play for it. But any 3 games at all, you're about to head out. You're not going to necessarily be fighting dinosaurs, but you will come across kind of people that are in 1s, groups of 2s, groups of 5s, groups of 10s. And when you ask them the question if they would like to play a board game, the answer is always going to be yes. So which games would you take with you?
Ah, I see. Probably Scythe would be on there.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Probably Forbidden Stars. I'm a big fan.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
For the third one.
Third one's a doozy.
I might actually take Cthulhu Wars that I mentioned earlier, just because if I don't play it, I could at least use it as building materials.
You could actually use it to build another whole park.
Yes.
judging by the size of it. Yeah. Excellent. Okay, that's fine. You go off into the city and you live a life of herding triceratops and fighting off velociraptors, and everything is good. But in the middle, you have a good couple of games like Cthulhu Wars and Forbidden Stars and Scythe, which is always good. Again, thank you very, very much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
I wish you all the success with the game, which is now sitting at, and I'll give you a live update, because you're probably looking at it anyway. You're probably frantically F5ing it and then realising...
I actually haven't refreshed it in a while, but that's a nice number.
Okay, 39,000. There you go.
Yes.
39,179, that's due. 758 backers, Mr. Keene. There you go.
That's pretty good.
That is pretty good, isn't it? It's all smiles round here. If you want to keep an eye on what we're doing, and I know Richard's going to wish he'd been doing something else this afternoon, you can find us if you go on Twitter. We're on We're Not Wizards. You can go on Facebook, which is We're Not Wizards. You can go find us on Instagram, which is also, guess what? We're Not Wizards. You can find us now on YouTube because we have got over 100 subscribers on YouTube, which means that as of yesterday, we have now our own little custom YouTube URL, which is kind of cool. So if you go to youtube.com/C for some reason, which I'm assuming stands for channel, and it's We're Not Wizards Tabletop Podcast, we'll find us there. If you have liked what you've listened to tonight and you want to reach out and get in contact with you, maybe you have got a campaign like Richard's running and you'd like to have a chat with us, then you can email us on magic@we'renotwizards.com or .co.uk, or send us a message through Facebook or Twitter or any other way you want to reach out. If you have liked what you've heard tonight even more, you can jump onto Apple Podcasts. You can give us a review. Now, what we like to say is, if you are giving us a review, don't give us a 10, because that will make us big-headed. But don't give us a 1, because that will make us cry. Give us a 5, because that's kind of average. It's in the middle. And we're just a bit average, to be honest. But the person that's not been average tonight is the rather wonderful, the rather fantastic, the rather fully funded, fully armed and operational battle station that is Mr. Richard Keene. So thank you again, Richard.
Thank you.
And there's only 2 more things to do. The first thing is to remember that we are many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, Richard?
No, sir.
Absolutely not. And the second thing is to say goodbye. So it is goodbye from Richard. Say goodbye, Richard.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe, roll 6s. You know, as we said at the top of the show, if you're deciding whether or not you can do something and whether or not you should do something, if it maybe comes to making your own board game, maybe you should go on the side of the should do something and see what happens, because sometimes maybe you'll get eaten by a velociraptor, but sometimes you'll go on to soar in the sky like a pterosaur, like Richard has here. But until the next time, goodbye.